So far 2018 is turning out to be a fairly exciting year for the MMORPG genre. For today's list, I will be showing you true MMORPGs you can play with your friends and thousands of others that will be widely playable in 2018 in the form of alphas, betas, or full releases. I'm not including games like Lost Ark, Sky Saga, Dauntless, or Soulworker that either have very low chances of releasing in 2018 or are simply commonly mistaken as MMORPGs but are actually just co-op hack-and-slash games. If you want to stay up to date with the games in this video, consider subscribing to my channel as I do cover a lot of them in more detail. Project Gorgon is a skill-oriented, PvE-heavy MMORPG in which, unlike traditional games in the genre, you don't get a class with its own skill set, but rather a large variety of combat and life skill types to choose from and level up. That will determine what your character is able to do and what role you ultimately end up playing. Interacting with NPCs is a huge part of the gameplay, with each NPC having its own personality and preferences, so what you do in front of them can affect how they treat you. Take for example, destroying a chicken in front of a vegan shopkeeper will earn you disfavor, and in turn make the shopkeeper charge you more for the goods they sell, refuse to give you missions, or even provide you with bad information. This game takes the relationship between action and consequence pretty seriously, which is pretty good for those into role-playing in a more genuine level. The monetization model will be buy to play when it launches on Steam late into 2018, but for now it's completely free during alpha testing. Up next is MapleStory 2, which is a 3D sequel to the ever-popular Korean MMO MapleStory, featuring similar art style, classes, NPCs, and world. The gameplay involves typical MMORPG questing progression, PvP arenas, lots of minigames, and social-oriented features like player-made dungeons and open-world player housing. No official date has been announced yet for its English release, however there is very strong evidence that its global version is coming very soon, likely in 2018 with leaked screenshots of the game in English and leaked English character voices.
Do you dare to challenge me?
Greetings. Pardon?
Where are the mesas, huh?
You've won the guild battle.
Chronicles of Elyria is a pretty unique MMORPG where your character starts out as a young human and ages until it eventually dies, changing your character's appearance and abilities as you get older. One character's lifespan is roughly 1 full year in real-world time. As players are able to actually have children in Elyria, you could choose to pass on your soul to them upon death and continue your gameplay within your lineage. Instead of choosing a class to start with, in Elyria you choose a family and begin the game as a child in that family, experiencing and affecting an ongoing immersive story. What you do in the game affects your character physically as well. For example, if you take on blacksmithing as a profession, you'd eventually get bigger arms from work, or if you decide you want to be a baker or cook, you may put on a bit of extra weight. Other features include a bounty system, communities exiling corrupt characters, and a political hierarchy with kings, queens, and dukes for controlling certain areas of the world. Alpha 1 is expected early into 2018. Astelia Online is a Korean MMORPG with a couple of features that are not so typical to the MMORPG genre. The main feature of the game is a monster card system in which you collect and combine cards to call forth powerful companions into battle with you. The companions are apparently critical parts of gameplay as they determine the style of one's combat through the various buffs, debuffs, and abilities that each one can provide, like crowd control, tanks, healers, and more. All the classes in this game are gender-locked. While there is an open world, gameplay consists heavily of small-scale 4-man dungeons, medium-scale 20-man raids, and instance PvP. Nexon has mentioned a North American release sometime in 2018, but is yet to make a full appearance in Korea. Therefore, it is questionable if this claim will be kept. Project TL, or Project Lineage, is NCSoft's newest venture with the ever-popular Lineage franchise. It's the remake of Lineage Eternal and substitutes as the sequel to the original Lineage game. The announcement of the remake is fairly recent, so we don't know too much information. But we do know already that in Project TL we'll be able to choose one of 5 different class/race variations, instead of having a squadron of multiple characters to control like it was in Lineage Eternal. A very good move by NCSoft. We've seen the knight equipped with sword and shield, with abilities like charge stun, chain attacks, and shield barriers. The mage with fire-based attacks and free skulls that interact with water. The Elf Ranger and 2 other characters not yet shown. A Korean beta is planned for 2018, but I wouldn't get too excited considering that its original version, Lineage Eternal, suffered from dozens of delays. Ascent Infinite Realm is the upcoming steampunk-themed open-world MMORPG where gameplay happens both on land and in the sky, with players able to fly briefly with wings and rocket thrusters, and for long periods of time with mountable dragons and airships. The game claims to give the ultimate aerial combat experience, with customizable flying mounts and airships used in many gameplay scenarios. Other features include player housing and life skills like cooking, fishing, farming, and racing pets to be used as mounts. The combat is tap target. Initially, the game will launch with 5 classes and plans to not have gender lock. The game runs on the old Unreal Engine 3, so graphically it should be close to Bless and Terra. It's already had its first Korean closed beta recently, and officially been stated that its developer Bluehole aims to have the game ready in English in the first half of 2018 to be published by Kakao Games, the same publisher as Black Desert Online. Crowfall is a new PvP-heavy sandbox MMO that is self-described as a Throne War PC MMO. You as a player are a crow, which is an immortal being that can inhabit the bodies of several vessels. In Crowfall, there is a huge focus on PvP and combat style variety. On top of the trinity of tank, DPS, and support, there are many specialist classes available. There is no traditional leveling, and you essentially begin what other MMOs would deem as endgame. Skills aren't gained through questing, but instead are gained passively over time. The game features temporary campaigns that go on for several months, and when the campaign is over, you have a player-owned customizable area called the Eternal Kingdom, where you can go through your spells of the campaign. Crowfall is a buy-to-play game being developed by a Western company, Artcraft Entertainment, and is currently in pre-alpha available exclusively to those that back the game through their early access packages. The game is planned to go into more widely playable and cheaper phases in 2018. Next is Bless Online, which is an open-world MMORPG where you begin by choosing between 2 factions locked at war. Your choice from 8 different races determine what classes you can play. Dungeons and raid content focus heavily on the trinity system of tanks, DPS, and heals. Graphically, it's likely the most impressive game on this list, but all prior versions of this game have suffered greatly from heavy client-side lag due to poor graphic optimization. Progression is heavily story and quest-based, with open-world PvP in areas where players are questing. The game's also recently went through a rebuild project to make its crafting, combat, skills, taming, and many more systems more in-depth and closer to modern MMORPGs. Other notable features are world bosses, instance arenas and battleground, and a taming system that allows the taming of about 80% of enemies in the game as pets, mounts, or minions. There's already playable versions of Bless in Korea and Japan, both of which have community-made English patches. Ashes of Creation, developed by Intrepid Studios, is likely the most hyped MMORPG on this list, and for sure at the very least has the most active following as of now. The game offers an open world divided into zones surrounding nodes, which in essence are points where civilization can develop into villages, cities, and metropolis. Everything done in the game's world, from questing to mining, contributes to a node's development, which in turn unlocks even more content around it. The game's housing system, politics, and many important features actually revolve around this node system, with content like voting for node leaders, taxation, and even more declarations between nodes. Players can choose 2 of 8 different archetypes to form one of the 64 different classes. The combat is tab target with a few directional skills, and looks like this for now in its pre-alpha stage. A few other notable features include castles and node sieges, trade runs, and a PK system. The game is set to have its first publicly playable version with no NDA in a Kickstarter alpha as early as October of this year. However, a full release isn't expected until 2019. Lastly, for number 1 we have Perry Chronicles. Perry Chronicles is a cel-shaded action combat MMORPG with a player-driven sandbox world like no other MMORPG had before it. With various tools, players can terraform the world around them to create mountains, underground tunnels, waterfalls, towns, and full-blown interactable quest-giving and reward-giving dungeons over the existing world. Combining tools and mechanisms like levers and switches allow the creation of complex world-building content from lamps to elevators. The combat in Prairie Chronicles centers around collecting and using powerful creatures with their own set of abilities known as Kiranas. When triggered, some can be summoned to fight beside you, and some can take the form of spells or weapons, like this character using a Kirana that transforms into a flaming bow. This game by far is the most exciting for me in 2018. Its publisher Nexon has been saying that they will be releasing a beta since 2017, but recently they've announced that a playable version is planned in 2018, with more news coming in this early winter. Keep in mind that many of the games I've talked about are in alpha or beta phases still, so naturally gameplay for them could change a bit from how I've described them. Check out my reviews and overviews of games I've covered before on this list, linked in the description below for more information. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful with your search for new MMORPGs. If you would like to support my channel and help me make more videos like this one, consider becoming my patron on patreon.com/Noct. I would also really appreciate it if you could share this video with your friends or gaming communities, as it would greatly help me reach a wider audience. Thank you so much for watching, and Happy New Year's!